Hello everyone, welcome to the 16th lab. You can find the link for this lab in the description. So let's start solving this lab. The first question is string output. The problem statement is write a function which takes a string as input from the user and displays it. The function takes no arguments and doesn't return anything. In the code you can see from the main function we have called a function named string output. So we need to make this function. So we are given the function does not return anything. So the return type of this function should be void. So how will I make this function? I'll write public static. Since this function doesn't return anything, it should be void. And the name of the function is string output. This function is not taking any arguments, so I'll leave this argument list empty. Now inside the function, I have to take a string as input from the user. So for taking input from user, I need to make object of scanner class. I'll write scanner sc is equals to new scanner system.in. The input string may contain spaces. So for taking this string input, I need to use sc.nextLine function. So I'll write string s is equals to sc.nextLine. Now I need to print this string. So I can print it using system.out.print. Since this is a variable, I need not use the double quotes. Let's now run this code. The sample test case has passed. Let's submit this. All the test cases have passed. Moving on to the next question. It is even or odd. Let's see the problem statement. Write a function which takes an integer parameter. The function displays even if the argument passed is even and odd if the argument passed is odd. If the argument is not positive, it should display invalid. The function doesn't return anything. So let's see how to code this. In the main function, an integer input is already taken and a function named even odd is made and it is passed an integer variable. So let's see how we can make this function. So the function will be public static. Now the function doesn't have to return anything, so the return type is void and the name of the function is even odd. The function is receiving an integer parameter. So here I'll write int and the name of the variable, let's say x. Now first we need to check if the argument is not positive, that means it is either 0 or negative. So I'll write if x is less than or equal to 0. In this case, we'll need to print invalid. So I'll write system.out.print invalid. Else if x is divisible by 2, x mod 2 equal to 0. In this case, I need to print even. So I'll write system.out.print even. And in the else part, I'll print odd. Else system.out.print odd. Let's try to run this code. The sample test cases have passed. Let's submit it. All the test cases have passed. Moving on to the next question. Concatenate strings. The problem statement is write a function which takes two strings as parameters and displays the concatenated string. The function doesn't return anything. So in this case, in the main function, we have already taken two strings and the input is taken using sc.next. Both these strings are passed to a function named concatenate and we need to make this function. So we'll start by public static. This function also doesn't return anything, so the return type should be void. The function name is concatenate and it is taking two strings as input. Let's say if the first string is string s1 and the second string is string s2. Here I have to display the concatenated string. So for concatenation of two strings, we'll use plus sign. So I'll display it using system.out.print s1 plus s2. Let's try to run this code. The sample test case has passed. Let us now submit it. All the test cases have passed. Moving on to the next question. The next question is smaller number. The problem statement is write a function which takes two numbers in double as input from the user and returns the smaller of the two. The function takes no arguments. So in the code, we have called a function named smaller and it is returning a double value which is stored in x, and then this x is printed. So how will we make this function? We'll start by writing public static. Now this function is returning a double value, so the return type should be double and the function name is smaller. Now this function is not receiving any arguments. Now in this function we need to take two numbers as input from the user. For that we'll make object of scanner class. So I'll write scanner sc is equals to new scanner system.in. The first variable is double a is equals to sc dot next double, and the next variable is b, so double b is equals to sc dot next double. So here we need to check which of these is smaller. So if a is less than b, in this case I need to return a because a is smaller, else I'll return b. So let's try to run this code. The sample test case has passed. Let us now submit it. All the test cases have passed. Moving on to the next question. The next question is divisibility. The problem statement is write a function which takes an integer input from the user. If the input number is divisible by 5 but not by 2, the function should return y, otherwise return n. The function takes no arguments. So here in the main function you can see a function named divisibility is called with no arguments, and the result of this function is stored in a character variable named answer. So how will we make this function? We'll start by writing public static. Now this function is returning a character value, so the return type will be char, and the name of the function is divisibility. So I'll write divisibility here. Now the function is not taking any arguments, so I'll leave the argument list empty. So now this function has to take an integer input from user. For taking input from user, we need to make object of scanner class. So I'll write scanner sc is equals to new scanner system.in. We have to take an integer variable, so I'll write int n is equals to sc.nextInt. Next I need to check if the input number is divisible by 5 but not by 2. So if n is divisible by 5, that is n mod 5 is 0 and n mod 2 is not equal to 0, that means the number is not divisible by 2. In this case I need to return a character y. So I'll return, character will be returned in single quotes, so I'll write return y. Now if this if condition doesn't execute, I'll come out of the if condition and here I can return n. I need not write the else block because if a variable is returned, the control will never reach this line. Whole function execution will stop on return. So let's try to run this code. The sample test cases have passed. Let us now submit this. All the test cases have passed. Moving on to the next question. The next question is product. The problem statement is write a function which takes two integers as parameters and returns their product. So in the main function we have taken two integers a and b from user and they are passed as arguments to the function product, and it is returning an integer variable, and the product function is returning an integer which is stored in answer, and then the answer is printed. So here we need to make this function product. So how will we make this function? We'll start by writing public static. Now this function is returning an integer value, so the return type of this function will be int. The name of the function is product, and this function is taking two integers as input. So let's say int a and int b. Now the function has to return product of these two numbers, so I'll return a multiplied by b. Let's try to run this code. The sample test case has passed. Let us now submit it. All the test cases have passed. Moving on to the next question. It is sum of numbers. Overload the function sum of numbers for two cases. Case 1 is two integers are given as input, and case 2 is three integers are given as input. and we have to return the sum of integers. So overload means we have to make the function sum of numbers twice. When there is more than one function with the same name, it is known as function overloading. So here we'll make the function sum of numbers more than once. So first case, we have to make it for 2 integers. Now how will we make this function? Public static. Now this function is returning sum of integers, so we are returning an integer value. So the return type will be int, and the name of the function is sum of numbers. Now for the first case, it is taking 2 integers, so I'll write int a and int b. So in this case, it will return sum of these 2 numbers, so I'll return a plus b. I again have to make this same function, so I'll write public static. The return type is again int, and the function name is same, sum of numbers. In this case, I have to pass it 3 parameters, all integers. So I'll write int a, int b, and int c. In this case, I have to return the sum of a, b, and c. So I'll write return a plus b plus c. Let's try to run this code. There are no sample test cases. Let us directly submit this code. All the test cases have passed. Moving on to the next question. Multiplication or division. Overload the function foo. In case the 2 parameters passed are of data type double, return the quotient when parameter 1 is divided by parameter 2. In case the 2 parameters passed are of data type integer, return the value when parameter 1 is multiplied by parameter 2. So here we have to overload the function foo. Public static. Now you can see this function foo is returning a double value in the first case when 2 double values are passed. So the return type will be double, and the name of the function is foo. So in this case, it is passed 2 double variables. So I'll write double a, comma double b. Now both the parameters passed are of double data type. In this case, we need to return quotient. So we'll return a divided by b. I need to overload this function, so I'll make this function again public static. Now in this case, it has to return an integer value, so the return type will be int, and the name of the function will remain same. Here I am passing it 2 integer parameters, so I'll write int a comma int b. Now when both the parameters are of integer data type, here I need to return the product of these 2 numbers. So I'll return a multiplied by b. Let us try to run this code. There are no sample test cases. Let us directly submit it. All the test cases have passed. Moving on to the next question, that is addition or subtraction. Overload the function foo when the first parameter is an integer and the second parameter is a float. Return sum of the 2 numbers. When the first parameter is a float and the second parameter is an integer, return difference of the 2 numbers. So first we have to make the function foo. So public static. So you can see from the code stub, in both the cases, when the first parameter is integer or the second parameter is integer, we are returning a float value. So the return type will be float. So I'll write public static float and then the name of the function. Here in the first case, I need to pass first parameter as integer and the second parameter as float. Now when the first parameter is an integer, I need to return the sum. So in this case, I'll return a plus b. Now in the second case, again the return type is float. So I'll write public static float. The name of the function remains the same. Here the first parameter is a float value and the second parameter is an integer value. In this case, I need to return difference, that is parameter 1 minus parameter 2. So I'll return a minus b. Let's try to run this code. There are no sample test cases. Directly submitting it. All the test cases have passed. All the questions in this lab are complete. Thanks for watching. See you in the next lecture.